Harley Quinn's Revenge is an underwhelming package. But what did I realistically expect? The art of DLC hasn't been perfected, and what makes a piece of downloadable content good, or anyway worth its price tag, remains a dubious question. Arkham City was a fine enough game, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. As a collection of finely tuned mechanics, it worked, but as an interesting Batman story? Its biggest fault in my mind was its absolute refusal to experiment with the canon, to take risks with the characters and try to do something unprecedented. So I suppose in that sense, I wanted Harley Quinn's Revenge to address that problem. From the start, Arkham City presumes you know all the major players, leaving a limited encyclopedia on the back end in case you need a refresher. Characters appear not as a function of the story's arc, but as elements in their own pre-existing narratives. Cool toys in a rigidly defined sandbox that we should just feel honored to have around, even though anybody could have been anybody else without changing the story at all. And to be fair, Arkham Asylum took a similar approach. Its reliance on the canon, however, was a tool for getting you in the door. The lack of character innovation may have worn thin, but at the end of the day, we were just happy to have a good, fun Batman game. As its successor, however, it could never be enough that Arkham City was built bigger. It had to be written bigger. In simplest terms, Arkham City needed something to make it an essential narrative, and the best way to accomplish this is to change the status quo. This is why Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, for the most part, work. They abide the guidelines of the comic, but alter the fine print in such a way that we gain new insight into an old story. But it doesn't take perfection to create success, and Arkham City was a huge hit, both financially and critically. A kerfuffle arose about its lazy approach to female characters, another in a long line of sexist representations of women in games, but this seems to have made little difference overall. Flash forward 6 months to the subsequent announcement and release of Harley Quinn's Revenge, and while it also got fine reviews, no one ever really talked about it. Did it address the accusations of sexism in Arkham City? Did it do anything interesting with the characters? One way or the other, the reviews weren't saying. Make no mistake though, Harley Quinn's Revenge is a failure. It does nothing to expand the mechanics of the series, it does nothing to expand the canon. It is a broken promise from top to bottom, starting with its title. The implication of Harley Quinn's Revenge is that by game's end, some kind of revenge will be taken. But Harley's attempts at vengeance are barely more than an inconvenience, and when the credits roll, no one has died, been harmed, or otherwise forced to address any of their demons. We are teased at the start that Batman has been in mourning since the close of Arkham City, and this has made him reckless. By giving us this information, Rocksteady is implying an arc, and not a bad one either. Batman, still paralyzed by the loss of his parents, now has to deal with the loss of his greatest nemesis, something he should be happy about, but isn't. In parallel to that, Harley Quinn is now in mourning for the death of her long-term abusive boyfriend. Both are dealing with complicated emotions. Both are acting on them in unhealthy ways. The arc is so obvious a child could write it. Between Batman and Harley, one has to overcome their grief, the other has to be buried by it. And you know who should have done the overcoming? Harley Quinn. I mean, it's in the name, isn't it? Harley Quinn is facing the same emotion as Batman, but instead of being its victim, she uses it as fuel for revenge. Now, if you think that doesn't make sense for Quinn's character, for these games you'd be right. Arkham City especially dumbed her down into Joker's ditzy number 2. Batman himself says,
Quinn never was too smart.
But if she's just a wacky idiot in a corset who just makes things worse, why does Joker even keep her around? And before you say it, no, it isn't love. Not that it couldn't be, but we don't see enough of his intimate side for that to make sense. He treats Harley the same way he treats his other minions, just with different adjectives. Even in the animated series, it was obvious to me he used her affection for him as a tool to get what he needed. If that's the case, Harley has to be fundamentally useful, right? She has to be a consistent resource for him if he doesn't just kill her when he's done with her, the way he does everybody else. And no, it's not because she breaks him out of Arkham. By the time these games start, she's long since lost her medical license and become a full-time criminal. And if it were just her knowledge of Arkham's security features, why wouldn't he just get that information from her and then get rid of her? Because Harley Quinn is Joker's secretary. Now this has never been stated outright, but what else could it be? Joker, remember, is a man of chaos. More to the point, he's completely insane. Look at other major Batman villains. Penguin, Two-Face, and Ra's al Ghul all have a history with organizations, politics, the criminal underground. They have the resources and experience to organize and incentivize the gang population and coordinate their activities. Other villains like Poison Ivy, the Riddler, and Scarecrow are generally loners who team up with the more organized guys when it suits their needs. Where does the Joker fit in? His origins are purposefully ambiguous, but the most frequent story is that he was a gambler who was forced into crime to pay off his debt. Do you think someone in that position is going to be able to so quickly ascend to the top of the roster? To become the clown prince of crime in Gotham, even if he has a natural affinity for it? No. because Joker's a big idea guy. What makes him a more effective villain than the others is his disregard for tradition. When others just keep trying to get into a fist fight with Batman, Joker is the one playing mind games using loved ones as pieces. And while Joker is the one who can come up with a plan to destroy Batman, it's Harley Quinn's job to see that that plan becomes reality. While Joker is busy fine-tuning the particulars of his latest moral challenge, Harley is the one going down the Rolodex making calls to henchmen and shady contractors, ensuring whatever investors they have that yes, this next plan will be the one that kills Batman. If you think she wouldn't be able to handle this, remember that before turning to a life of crime, Harley was a psychiatrist. That's a minimum of 8 years in college before getting her MD, another 4 if she completed her residency. And considering the power she must have wielded at Arkham, a high-security prison holding Gotham's most deranged lunatics, to be able to break Joker out more than once, I think it's safe to assume she did. Take all this into account, her educated background, her experience with the Joker, her battered housewife sensibility. What should happen to her when Joker dies? It definitely shouldn't be this.
Listen up, dumbasses! I want this room kept secure. In fact, I need this room kept secure. I don't care how you do it, just don't let me down. Mr. J wouldn't like it if you failed me, would he? No, he wouldn't. He'd be very upset. He'd probably kill you all. Or break your legs, or glue your eyes open, or make you eat a grenade. Oh, who am I kidding? He'd do something much better. He was Mr. J, right? He always knew what to do. I'm just here, alone, relying on you idiots. So don't fail me!
The story of Harley Quinn's revenge should have been Harley waking up. She realizes that she has been in an abusive relationship with the Joker, that for all this time, his only interest was in Batman, and he was just using her in order to get to him. She realizes that the only reason she hates Batman is that Joker needed her to hate him. Harley looks back on her life and realizes she's wasted years, perhaps decades, doing grunt work for a madman. Any chance of getting her career back is long gone. At best, she's destined to be an inmate at Arkham. And she can never expect any leniency or forgiveness from the Bat Clan because she's personally tortured all of them on multiple occasions. Suddenly, Harley finds herself trapped in a vicious, self-fueling cycle of anger and regret. And at the center of it all, of course, is Batman, the caped crusader, without whose existence her life might have remained on a normal track. But she isn't just some girl with a bone to pick. Besides just having organized Joker's plans for years, she has gone toe-to-toe with Batman and friends several times. And unlike every other villain in Gotham, she's witnessed Joker's process firsthand. She long ago figured out his twisted logic, but kept it quiet because, on some level, she knew the person Joker wanted her to be was a ditzy, dumb, forgetful little girl. But now that he's dead, Harley is free to shed that abused outer shell of a person and take the operation into her own hands. She hears word on the street that Batman has been reckless lately and assumes correctly that he is dealing with his own suite of emotions. So she builds a trap for him, makes him think she is helpless and broken, sets him up to think he can find redemption by foiling whatever plot she's cooked up. And then, she yanks the rug out from under him. Harley Quinn has planned for every contingency and correctly anticipated his reckless behavior. Batman is defeated, Harley Quinn is victorious. Now Batman has to face the fact that his grief is holding him back. And more importantly, the stage has been set for a much larger conflict in the 4th Arkham game. If you think this doesn't make sense for the Arkham games, again, you're a little right. It would only take a quick narrative handwave that her ditzy persona was a mask she wore to make Joker happy to justify such a quick turn. And really, what are we losing in the process? Including Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Talia al Ghul, that makes 4 women in this series who use sex as their primary weapon. It's an interesting idea in one character, but it's boring and lazy when used in all of them, and having Harley be the sexy one that is dumb does not count as variation. This turn isn't perfect. In the hands of a bad writer, it would only exacerbate the problems the series already has. If done correctly, though, it would have had the opposite effect, and I think we all would have been thankful for it. But instead, we got a Harley Quinn who is utterly defeated by her grief, who is a victim from start to finish without an active bone in her body. She's dumb because the game says she's dumb, so she stays that way, fails miserably, and leaves us wondering where our $15 went. Nothing has been addressed, no one has changed, and no revenge has been taken. In the final scene of the game, Batman has Harley by the throat, having just taken the bomb detonator from her hands. He discovers it doesn't work, and the camera closes in on him as he realizes that he's out of time. The bomb explodes, singeing Commissioner Gordon's face from a distance. It explodes again, and then Batman jumps out with Harley in his arms, both completely unharmed. She says angrily that he should have left her to die so she could be with the Joker again. And then Batman's response...
Quiet!
Quiet. Ugh. I can't imagine a more appropriate end to such a disappointing game. But it doesn't take perfection to create success. In Arkham Asylum... whoops, that's the wrong Arkham game. Ha ha! Ha! I've edited this script. Ho ho! Whee! Flying by the seat of my wit. My pants. My witty pants.